Hello, hello, hello. How's everyone doing? Another week, another episode. This is Stats Over Politics. As always, I'm your host, Shaun alongside my guy, Mr. Keith Jouganatos, with perfect timing, stepping back into the frame here on YouTube, Twitch, and Instagram. And we're back for another episode number 188. Mr. Javon Toddy should be joining us soon. Kevin and Alex Dent aren't able to be here today, but as you guys saw on Sunday, they recapped all of the game ones in the NBA playoffs first round. And Keith and I, along with Javon, are here to react and recap the game twos in the first round. And we'll also sprinkle in, as Javon would say, a little bit of NBA awards at the end of today's episode. So, Keith, before we get started, I want to know, how are you doing, bro?
Well, first things first, glad to be here. As always, we must go do proper arrangements in regards to before we get everything started. Got a lot of NBA basketball to talk about. Glad to be here as always. The Pirates over 500. Who saw that come in spring? Had the pregame crumble cookie. As always, you know what we got to do. Anytime I'm on, we plug the Diet Dr. Pepper, not because we have to, but because we want to, and we appreciate greatness. I also appreciate the fact that you invited me on a couple of weeks ago, and I actually had to sit and watch you acknowledge the Michigan Wolverines win the national title and put the Big Ten on our backs as we once again do what Ohio State cannot. But that's not besides the point. I'm not here to talk about the past. We're here to talk about the future, and the NBA playoffs look great. Great to be here. Excited for the opportunity back on the podcast and ready to get into it.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you caught that because I was talking directly to you on this podcast where I said, conveniently, Keith Jouganatos is not here, and it's because I did not give him an invitation on
Couldn't
purpose
do it.
because I did not want to subject myself to that. I was already dealing with it enough over text, and
You
so
couldn't accept it. It's fine. We won't force you to accept. Very, very nice, but also very evil. You know.
Yes, yes, yes. Keith Housen, I agree. I completely agree there. And I went to WrestleMania in Las Vegas this past weekend. It was pretty awesome. My third WrestleMania, second year in a row. I don't know the next WrestleMania I'm going to because I'm definitely not going next year in Saudi Arabia. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I'm
Or any of
happy
us.
to be home here. Yeah, man. Good luck to anyone who decides to go to WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia next year. But happy to be back home here in Sacramento. The grind continues, and now here we are for another episode of Stats Over Politics, Keith. So let's get right into it as we start with the game that we just watched. We had originally planned to go live today at 9 o'clock, but this game took a little bit longer than expected, and it's because the Suns made a run in the fourth quarter propelled by Dillon Brooks, only to fall short as A.J. Mitchell hits a clutch three out of the timeout, about 3.5 minutes left. And then the Thunder really locked up the victory as they take a 2-0 lead over the Suns. As I mentioned, Kevin and Alex, they talked about game one on Sunday, so we're not going to focus too much on game one. But Keith, just what was your reaction to this outcome and the fact that the defending champions have now taken a 2-0 series lead here in the first round?
Well, I think anybody would tell you that as an NBA fan that follows the league, there's Oklahoma City and there's everybody else. And we'll get into San Antonio, Boston, Cleveland, your beloved Cleveland Cavaliers randomly the last couple of months, but that's not the point. But obviously, to be the champs, you got to beat the champs. And it's hard. Why is it hard? Because Oklahoma City is so talented. You saw Jalen Williams get hurt earlier in this game. You hope he's okay and that hamstring is in one piece and that he can be able to go down the line. But even with only getting 19 minutes from J-Dub, you still get 37 from Shea. You'll still get a nice 19 points from Chet Holmgren. And you force Phoenix into 22 turnovers. And what I love about Oklahoma City when I watch them is that, yes, obviously lots of talent, lots of young, talented individuals on that core that Mark Dagnall has to play around with. But they can go big, they can go small, they can shoot the three ball, they can rebound if need to, they can push the tempo. There's never going to be with Oklahoma City a set way you can beat them, unless, obviously, knock on wood, the injuries. But I keep telling people, and we keep going back and forth. You know, the internet, Shaun Hochul, they like to joke around. You know, there's jokes all around the internet, especially NBA Twitter, and we see the memes. But I'm going to tell you this right now. A Chrysler 300 looks like a phantom until an actual phantom pulls up. What do I mean by that? Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, you can call him a free throw merchant. You can call him a guy that fakes it, that flops it till he makes it, that flops till he drops 37 points. Yes, he might get some calls favorably here or there. When you're the MVP, you do MVP things, but he went 9 for 9 from the free throw line, and there's a control to his game. You can have great players, and we'll talk about Anthony Edwards, and we'll talk about the Jokic's. In order to control a basketball game and be a contending team, I've always said one thing. Your best player has to have the feel and knows how to control the car. Don't have to go 100 miles per hour every single time, but can you go 60 and ride that puppy on the freeway until it's time to get off at the exit? And that's what I love about SGA. You can say all you want about the free throws. He can control the game, the tempo with such ease. He can change the speed. He can work off the pick and roll. The jump shot is consistent. We are looking at one of the greatest players, not even at his peak, I would say, in NBA history. If obviously the injuries are, you have to stay healthy. But man, this guy is so good at what he does, scoring the basketball, but also you don't turn it over. And you need that in your best player to make sure if you're going to win a championship, your best player has to not cost you the basketball game. He doesn't do that. Oklahoma City up 2-0. Did not have a Dylan Brooks 30 ball, but that's always interesting to see. But you're just seeing right now, Phoenix in a regular year, Phoenix is 45-37. They're not a bad basketball team. The problem is, though, is that 45 wins in the Western Conference in the year of our Lord 2026 only gets you a play-in invite. You got to win the play-in, and then you get to be the 8th seed. And as a result, you're playing arguably one of the greatest basketball teams to ever suit up in the NBA with such a young core. It's just hard right now. They're just the talent on that side. It's too vast for Oklahoma City. We might be looking at a 4-0 or a gentleman's sweep the way this is going.
Well, now joining us in introducing none other than a pair of toddies, Mr. Javon and Mako Toddy joined us here on episode 188 of Stats Over Politics. Hi, Mako.
He just wave. Say hi. Say hi.
He was waving like a pro, and then he got a little shy.
He's had enough of us already.
Welcome, Podfather.
Keith kind of hit the nail on the head, kind of with everything that he was talking about. Kind of getting 0 points from J-Dub didn't really matter. Obviously because Shea had a 40-piece, 38 to be exact. I thought Chet Holmgren played really well. He shot 50% from 3-point range, hitting 3 out of 6 threes. I think kind of what the main focus is for Phoenix is they need guys to generate offense, and I think Jalen Green, as much as it pains for me to say, he had 21 points off of 23 shots. So OKC is kind of putting him in a position to try and be able to, okay, we saw what you were able to do in the play-in. Let's see if you can duplicate that. And me being the guy that I am, I'm a Jalen Green truthless believer, and I feel like
has been
every
years.
time he has these games in the playoffs or play-in, he takes off, and then the next game is just like he disappears. We saw it last year in the playoffs when he had the near, I think it was 38-point game, one of those playoff games against the Warriors. And then the next couple of games, I think he didn't even score 38 points combined. So kind of being the team that OKC is defensively, and then being able to kind of put these guys in shackles and make other guys beat you, like Dylan Brooks. Dylan Brooks is a guy who we're not accustomed to seeing scoring 30 points in a game. But this was a game that they kind of needed whatever offense that they could get. And the way that OKC's defense is set up, it kind of forces other teams like the Suns to go out and try and beat you. Like, all right, Dylan Brooks, you can go out and get 30, show me, type shit. So, obviously, Devin Booker is the guy that we all look at. I didn't think he was nearly as aggressive as he was in game one. Only really having 14 shots. You see guys like Jalen Green have 23 shots. Devin Booker is a guy that needs to demand the ball more. and go out and try and score 30 because they kind of need that from him. With OKC kind of being the team that they are, they're going to need everything that they can get. So, obviously, probably it's going to be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to be the MVP. He got that 38 kind of with ease. If you watch the game, Keith was already mentioning he controls the pace of the game and he plays at his own pace. He never gets sped up. And that's one of his qualities that you'll notice. That takes him a long way. So, yeah. The Thunder were like 17.5-point favorites in this game, and they did not cover. 18 points is a lot. They ended up winning by 13. So, I never really thought that they would cover that spread just based off of the game, how it went off, because the Suns were kind of trying to cut back into the lead. And you saw that they were down 26 at one point in time. And then Dillon Brooks kind of got hot and then ended up kind of going on an insane run and cutting that lead down to, I think it was like 10 points at one point in time. But I never really thought OKC would lose the game. But 17.5 points is a lot of goddamn points. I don't care who you are. In a playoff game, it's insane. So I would imagine the spread for game 3, it's probably going to be like 8.5. That's just me taking a crazy gambling guess, but that's still a lot of points, especially on the road for a team like OKC. But I think Thunder are probably going to win 4 games.
Yeah, I agree that I think that the Thunder will end up sweeping this series. The thing that really made me raise my eyebrows about all the discussion there was when Keith was talking about the fact that this Thunder team, like as assembled, despite how young they are quickly becoming one of the best teams in NBA history, is what I heard you say, Keith, as well as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander cementing himself among the all-time greats, which maybe I'm a little hesitant to go that far because I try to shy away from recency bias. But 5-10 years down the line, when we, especially considering how many championships this core ends up winning together, because they have a great chance to do it again this year and to go back to back, just like Shai has a great chance to go back to back as the MVP. And so, like, being here in the moment, it feels like an extreme statement, but also like in the grand scheme of things, I think that you're onto something just as far as in the grand scheme of things later on down the line.
It's hard. You know, we watch sports all the time, and I think about this often. It's not even an NBA thing, but just an overall circumference of sports in general. It's hard to win a championship. It's even harder to win it again because you're dealing with all the outside noise, the interference. And then once you win that championship, then it becomes a situation where it's like, all right, we won it. We've reached the mountaintop. What else is there now? It takes a really unique collective of individuals to get that fired up again, be hungry, but also you have to be really lucky, Shaun, with injuries. And I look at a team like, I hate to, be the bearer of bad news, but the Niners with their core, they've been competitive the last 10, 11 years, damn near. But certain years, injury bug doesn't fall their way, they're out of it. But again, you got to get really lucky to win a championship in any professional sport because the competition is so vast. And then to do it again, everyone has to buy in. Certain guys have to be healthy. And the one thing about the Thunder that's really scary, keep this in mind. Jared McCain, one of the bright young guards in the league, he played 0 minutes tonight. They didn't need him. So again, for Oklahoma City, as you look at the way the bracket goes, they're obviously going to be a tough out for anybody. But we're going to get into this whole situation with San Antonio and the Lakers and the Rockets. I mean, by default, and obviously we got to see what's going to go happen with J-Dub, but if the Thunder are able to sweep the Suns, it's going to give them, I believe, such an ability to rest up and charge and get healed up. But also there is that drawback of you're not playing basketball for a vast majority of time. Are you practicing as hard? You can't really repeat like game reps and in-game minutes compared to practice. But again, if you can get a sweep, get out of Phoenix 4-0, I mean, that is a W as far as everything else. Because I don't think any of these series that we're going to talk about in a minute, I don't think there's going to be a gentleman's sweep. Maybe one, but I don't think you're looking at a sweep at any of these series. And I think you're at least looking 5 or 6, depending on what happens on the Western bracket.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, given the fact that 5 of these series are split 1-1, when usually in the first round, you see a lot of 2-0 series through those first couple of games. But the fact that more than half of them are split 1-1 is great for basketball. It's great for sports fans because it just adds to the intrigue. Like you said, that it's not a guarantee that we're going to see a lot of sweeps or even a gentleman's sweep, which is really unique in the first round. And the Thunder, they seem to be the only team that's in cruise control. And like you said, the rest is where it's really going to help the Thunder, particularly when it comes to J-Dub, who got hurt in tonight's game. And who knows how long he's going to be out. And so that, yes, you have to balance rest over rust. But the fact that the Thunder could end up having their second best player get valuable time to recuperate and not have to rush back. I mean, I think they were even talking during the game broadcast, Doris Burke and Dave Pasch, about the fact that J-Dub didn't feel like he had to rush back and he didn't have to come back that soon this year when he was hurt. And it's because the team was doing so well without him that they didn't really seem desperate to have him back. Like, obviously, adding him back is great, but he didn't have to rush back because they didn't really need him to. And you hit the nail on the head with Jared McCain. The Thunder are just adding all of these great pieces. Like, what's that thing called from Avengers? Is it the Infinity?
The Infinity Stones? Yeah.
Infinity Stones. Yeah, there you go. That's what the Thunder are doing. The fact that, like, Jared McCain is a luxury for them to not have to play them. Meanwhile, on probably at least half.
We'll see how Johnny Mitchell fits.
Exactly. And he was the one who hit that clutch 3 out of the timeout that really sealed the win for them when the Suns were chipping away. And so the Thunder, they could be a juggernaut that won't be stopped this season. And who knows for seasons to come, as you were alluding to. So we shall see as these playoffs continue to develop. The other game from tonight being Wednesday night, April 22nd, is the Pistons beating the Magic 98-83 to tie the series 1-1. And if you're like me, then you probably felt like this was a shocker, the fact that this series is tied 1-1, because I'll just share a quick anecdote from my weekend. I was in Las Vegas, as I noted at the top of the show. And so
yes, you were.
With that, I went to the casino. I stopped by the Caesars Sportsbook, and I made a wager that was honestly, in reflection, even when I made the wager, I thought it was a dumb wager, but I was like, there's no way that this loses. And of course it lost. But the wager that I made was on Sunday to pick all of the favorites, all the heavy favorites, the Thunder, the Spurs, the Pistons, and whatever the other one was. It was the 2 seed, I think, in the East, whatever. The point is that I bet on all heavy favorites. I had it as a 4-leg parlay, and even as a 4-leg parlay, it was the Celtics beating the Sixers. Anyways,
not a bad one.
Well, it was good for game 1, not good yesterday. But the point being is that I picked each 1 and 2 seed to win on Sunday. I bet $30, Keith, to win $23. The odds were negative odds on a 4-leg parlay because I just went all straight money line. Boston was like plus 1,200 to win. Oklahoma City was like minus 1,200, minus 1,500. And so putting all 4 of them together on a 4-leg parlay led to minus 128 odds. So I was winning. I would have won less money than I was wagering to start with. And what do you know? The Detroit Pistons have an absolute stinker in game 1. They let the Magic control the entire game and go on to win in wire-to-wire fashion. Kevin and Alex already covered that, so we don't have to dive into it. Thankfully,
Vegas undefeated.
I just had, man, I just had to share. I just had to share that anecdote because it really pissed me off, and it was a dumbass decision on my part. But nevertheless, Keith, the Pistons bounced back tonight in Game 2, beating the Magic 98-83 to tie the series. Just how are you feeling about this series in general?
I felt like from the outside looking in, I think the Pistons do what sometimes the talented teams do. They overlook teams. I am going to not look at this so much as a shocker, obviously, that Orlando won Game 1. If you remember, when Orlando acquired Desmond Bane, when they acquired Desmond Bane in the offseason, there were a lot of teams and a lot of predictions that said, hey, we don't know what's going to go on with Tatum, this and that with Boston. It's wide open, the East, right? And so there were a lot of pundits that picked Orlando to be one of the top teams. And they really haven't had their, so to speak, concrete starting lineup a majority of the year. As a result of that, obviously they get in the play-in, they get hot, they beat Charlotte, and they took Detroit by surprise. I thought the important thing for the Pistons was that, number one, Asar Thompson had a plus 24 plus minus in this game. He only scored 11 points, but Asar Thompson brings such versatility on the defensive side of the floor. He's able to really shut down a lot of what Orlando likes to do off the pick and roll. And again, they put the Magic in a situation where they said, okay, we need your best players to beat us. The other thing in Game 1 that was different than Game 2 was that Paolo Banchero shot the lights out. He was 7 of 17 tonight. He only had 18 points. If you hold Paolo to less than 20 points, you got a great chance to win because that means everyone else has to step up. The other thing was that Wendell Carter Jr. played out of his mind in regards to the first game. He only had 3 points tonight. So obviously that, but also it was the fact that the main guys, the guys that Detroit is going to need, because obviously we are picking them to win this series and move forward, barring anything crazy. The guys that the Pistons need in order to not only win this series and go forward, but contend for a championship, Duren, Thompson, they need those guys to be factors. And a lot of them weren't in Game 1. But also, because you got to understand, Cade's going to be fine. Cade gives you 39 in Game 1. He gives you 27 in Game 2. Cade's not going to be an issue. But it's everybody else collectively for Detroit that has to pitch in and do their part. And that's getting turnovers, getting rebounds. I think they won the rebounding battle by like 57-40 or 57-30 or something like tonight, something like an ungodly number. So I really think that the Pistons just were overlooking Orlando. Obviously, a lot of hype coming in. It's the first time in a long time these past 2 years that the Pistons have been relevant and have been considered a team that can go far in the postseason. I really think they took them by surprise. Now comes the intriguing part, because if the Detroit Pistons are going to be contenders, like a lot of people think, because there are some people out there that are picking the Pistons to go to the finals. There's a couple, but they're out there. But if they're going to be one of those teams that takes the next step, they've got to be able to win playoff games on the road, which is something they struggled to do against the Knicks, albeit that one game last year. But if the Pistons are able to go into Orlando and take 2, then it starts to get interesting, because obviously the East is regarded as wide open, so to speak, even though the Pistons are the number 1 seed. I would look at them a little different, but I think it was a huge bounce back game. It put a lot of doubt and a worry to rest for now for the Motor City and the Piston faithful.
Yeah, I was one of those people about a month ago who was just so sky high on the Detroit Pistons, and I was not so much a believer in Toddy's Celtics, and Jason Tatum made me quickly realize how much of an idiot I was for so boldly proclaiming that the Celtics would be a semifinals team that got eliminated rather than making it back to the conference finals. And now I feel like that take, I mean, it can still hit, but I'm kind of feeling like that take might be freezing cold by the end of these playoffs. So, Toddy, I'm not sure if you got a chance to hear my awful bet that you would have never made that I did in Vegas, where I did a 4-leg parlay of all the heavy favorites on Sunday just for the Pistons to lose. And I bet $30 to win $23. It was such a dumb bet, but I was like, it's free money. And of course, Detroit let me down. Nevertheless, Kevin and Alex already covered game 1 on Sunday night. So what was your reaction to game 2 tonight and the fact that this series is tied 1-1?
This was the first playoff game, I think, since 2008 the Pistons have ever won. That's going back to the last couple of years. The Pistons have been in the playoffs, and I think it was, the city needed it. Obviously, Keith already covered. Cade Cunningham was the catalyst for this team, obviously, so he's not the problem. It kind of comes down to everybody else. And I thought he got some very fair contributions. Tobias Harris adding in 16 points and 11 rebounds. Didn't shoot well from 3, but was able to contribute. I did think Duran played a little bit better than he did the night prior. Doesn't really show up in the box score, but you see he was a little bit more involved defensively. He was in game 1, then in game 1, in game 2. I do think the Magic kind of repeated what we've been seeing from them kind of all year. And in the first playing game, they get very stagnant offensively. And when Paolo Banchero is not scoring, the team as a whole is starving for someone to generate offense for them. And I think when Paolo's not going, everyone else is kind of like, all right, can somebody else? Who else is going to help us? And you're kind of hoping Franz Wagner can be that guy. But we haven't seen that consistently, especially in the playoffs. As far as this game, the under was free. Unders as a whole, this entire playoff run, I think, I'm not sure what the updated version is, but I think before today's games, it was like 7-2 to like the under. So the under obviously in this game. Going forward, I mean, the Magic technically still have home court. I just think the Pistons being a 1 seed, younger team, just getting out a lot of pregame jitters that first game, kind of being heavy favorites, kind of woke them up a little bit. So they obviously came back to life today. So I do think they just had to get punched in the mouth, taste their blood a little bit. And I think moving forward, we'll start to kind of begin to see that Pistons team that we've seen throughout the whole entirety of the regular season. And I think realistically, I think the series is probably over in 5 games, if I want to be all the way honest. Now, I do understand what we just saw from the Magic in game 1 was like a revelation of where the hell has this been kind of all year. This is the team we were expecting. Like people like myself were picking the Magic to be like a top 3 seed, just given based off of the injuries to Jason Tatum, the injuries to Tyrese Halliburton. Coming into the season, obviously the addition of Desmond Bane, we were like, oh, this is the third scoring option that we've been the Magic were kind of yearning for throughout this Paulo, Franz Wagner era. And they were always kind of like very, very stagnant on offense. And for them to have that addition in Desmond Bane was kind of like the missing link for them. And throughout the season, it's kind of been very roller coastery, injuries. This player hasn't been able to play with this player. We haven't had our trio together. And then kind of getting healthy for the playoffs, those last couple of games of this regular season, you were kind of like, all right, well, where are they going to be able to generate offense from? And then all of a sudden for them to have that spark in the last playoff game, play-in game, and then going and rolling that over into game 1, you're like, oh, wait, hold on. Is this the Magic team that we were kind of hoping we would see? And then they kind of revert back to what we have known for them to be for the entirety of the whole regular season. So we'll see. I think the Pistons are probably, I'm going to guess, they were like 9-point favorites. They'll probably be like 5.5-point favorites, 4.5-point favorites going into the Magic game 3. So we'll see how that goes. I think the Magic probably won I think the the Pistons win pretty comfortably moving forward.
There's also one thing that we are underlying here, because I don't want to rain on the Orlando game 1 upset parade, but we're like year 1 into a 5-year rookie contract extension for Paolo worth $287 million. This is a very important series. This cannot be a Paolo fade in, fade out type of series, because if I'm Orlando and I'm hitching my wagons to this core, if he's the supposed best player, which you could make a debate about whether it's him or Franz, and I'm giving you $280 million, my best player can't be inconsistent the way it's been the last 2 weeks, you know?
Yeah, Javon, I'm actually...
It hasn't even been like this. Like, in playoff performances, Paolo's been pretty damn good. So, like, for the entirety of his career, the playoff series that we've seen him in, he's been like the guy from, we just go back to his draft class, like, oh, I'm taking Paolo over this guy, like, the Magic got it right. So it kind of comes down to, I understand where Keith is coming from, because if you're paying your number one option superstar player $280 million and he's giving you 18 points in the playoff game, there's conversations need to be had. And they were already kind of like, there were even rumblings about when Paolo was hurt, and the Magic were winning games, they were like, oh, the Magic don't even need Paolo Banchero. Like, we can do this without him, blase this, blase that. And so I think that's a load of crap. Obviously, I think the Magic obviously need Paolo if they want to get to new heights and be that type of franchise. They need Paolo Banchero to be on their team, but at the same time, you need him to produce in the playoffs. And for the most part, we've pretty much seen him be able to produce in big playoff moments. But as the season as a whole, I don't think they've been playing well. But I think he'll probably have like a 25-ish, 27-point-ish game in game 3. But I just don't think they have enough of firepower, as crazy as to say, to win game 3. I think the Pistons win pretty comfortably in game 3.
Javon, I was looking at you a little strange when you were saying that the Pistons should be favored in game 3. And the reason for that was just because I'm thinking to myself, like, this Magic team went to Detroit and won game 1 by double digits. Now they're going back home. But then I'm also thinking, you know what? Like, it is a 1 versus 8 seed. Upsets happen. And so I guess it makes sense that the Pistons would be favored. But I don't know. I did not do well with my sports gambling this past weekend. It's the only time I do sports gambling at this point, besides like friend to friend. It's the only time that I'll actually like place wagers. And so I probably am not the person to really give my take on this. You're the expert, Javon, when it comes to Vonnie's hotline. But I don't know if Detroit is favored, I personally, if I were betting, I might consider taking Orlando with the points there, because Javon, you feel that Detroit will win handily in game 3. I think it'll be really close. Detroit will probably win, but I think it'll be a lot closer than people think.
There was like a stretch, I don't know if it was like a 3 or 4 year stretch where Orlando usually was an underdog in most of the series, and they would win game 1. Like, in like 3 straight years of them being in the playoffs for, I don't remember how long ago it was, but I do specifically remember Jameer Nelson being on the team, where they would win the first game of each playoff series and then get swept.
They beat the Bucks that one time. They beat the Bucks that one time. I know that for sure. I don't know if that was the year the Bucks won it all, but they definitely beat the Bucks in game 1 of the series. They were like the 8th seed.
Yeah. They were like, I really want to say Jameer Nelson was on one of those teams, and they won the game 1. I'm like, oh, here come the Magic. Like, the Magic might have something here, and just proceeded to just get 4-0 the next 4 games. So I don't know if this is that. They were calling it like the Orlando Magic in game 1. Just it might be that. So I don't know if it's a little bit of Orlando Magic game 1, and just everything just disappears at one point in time. But it's a little bit different now. You have a guy in Paolo Banchero. A lot of people think he's a budding young superstar. So they definitely have a chance. They have home court. So that's something to look at. But I don't know if that's going to last. So I think the Pistons win Game 3.
Yeah, just to follow up on what Keith was saying with the Magic and the Bucks, as I vaguely remember, it was in the bubble when the Magic stole that first game against the Bucks, and I remember that vividly, just because I remember Jonathan Isaac having something crazy on the back of his jersey, like in 2020 during the bubble, and yeah, that's how I remember it. And then my final thought on this series is that after the Magic lost the first play-in game against the 76ers, and again, that was a 76ers team without Joel Embiid. I kind of just stopped believing in the Magic after that game. And then obviously they go on to beat Charlotte. They move on to the playoffs, and then they take game 1 in Detroit. And so they were on a bit of a roll until tonight's game. But I don't know how I feel about the Magic, because Toddy, I wouldn't have gone as far to say that I thought they'd be a top 3 team this year, but I thought for sure that they would be top 5, top 6. And they kind of have been pretty inconsistent, and injuries does play a factor into that. But I don't know what to think about this Magic team. Like after game 1, I would not be surprised if they ended up somehow beating Detroit and advancing. But I also wouldn't be surprised if this turned into a gentleman's sweep where Detroit wins the next 3 games after tonight. And so I really don't know what to think about this Magic team. And I guess we'll continue to find out as we keep things moving here on episode 188 of Stats Over Politics. Shaun Holko alongside Javon Toddy and Keith Jouganatos. Guys, let's get to the next game, which was the last of last night. And that's the Lakers beating the Rockets 101-94 to take a 2-0 lead as Javon crowns himself. Keith Jouganatos, just like Kevin Dent and Gary Singh, is a LeBronologist, and so Keith loves seeing Javon crown himself. So Toddy, start this one for us. What was your reaction to the Lakers beating the Rockets again to take a 2-0 lead, all without Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves?
As far as the game goes, Kevin Durant started off hot, caliente. I mean, he just looked like he was going to go for 40 that night. Got to give credit to JJ Redick and that coaching staff for adjusting. I think he only scored 1 point in the third quarter. So they absolutely pounced on KD, just forcing him with so many double teams, just giving him as much resistance as possible. I do think whenever it comes down to being the well-coached team in the series, being the well-coached team in this series definitely goes to JJ Redick. LeBron James is just a force of nature. Has been a guy known to carry series throughout his whole entire career. For God's sake, he took Zaltrudas and Ilgauskas to the finals. Boobie Gibson. This is going back to 07. Just him just being a guy that's... There was a point in time we were saying if LeBron James was on the Charlotte Bobcats, the Bobcats are going to the finals. So, I mean, for them to be underdogs in the series, I understand. Luka Doncic, a guy who was in MVP conversations, throughout the entirety of the year, went on an insane run, that like 2-month run where he was scoring 40, 50 points. I understand. Even losing Austin Reeves was just a chance for them to have some sort of shot in the dark to be able to win that series. And I was like, well, is LeBron James still playing? Well, he certainly is still playing. And guess what? He's 41 years old. I understand that. But at the same time, it comes down to who do you trust more in the entirety of the series? Do you trust LeBron James, or do you trust this hapless Rockets team that's, I think, has underperformed throughout the entirety of the year? Adding a Kevin Durant, you were always thinking with this Rockets team, the pieces that they have, you have Kevin Durant, it should be easy, right? He's the missing piece. Jalen Green was the guy who was a shot chucker. Obviously, they don't have Fred VanVleet, which kind of hinders them, and it forces them to play guys like Reed Shepherd, who was obviously inexperienced, but it was just plug and play with adding Kevin Durant. I don't think that's really the case. They've always been a team that hasn't really been able to shoot the three well. You have a guy in Luke Kennard who oddly is the guy that leads the whole state of Ohio in scoring on the team, and he has the 27-point game in game 1. And then you have guys like Rui Hachimura adding to the scoring. Guys like Marcus Smart scoring. And then obviously you have LeBron James, who had 28 points last night at the age of 41. It was just easy for them. And I did see a stat that when LeBron takes a 2-0 lead, he's like 30-something and 0. So, I mean, the writing's on the wall for the Rockets. I mean, it's been kind of all year with the Rockets, Michael. It's been kind of all year with the Rockets. They've underperformed. And for them to kind of just be able to just – it was a match made in heaven when Kevin Durant was announced that he was out in game 1. It was like, oh, well, this is just the Lakers literally see red. So LeBron James being up 2-0, it gives them nothing but comfort and all the confidence in the world that the Lakers are going to win this series. And I thought the Lakers were going to win this series, even though that they didn't have Luka and they didn't have Austin Reeves. It just gives them a little bit more confidence. And it shows to say, if LeBron's able to get past this series and they do get a Luka Doncic and they do get Austin Reeves, how far can this Lakers team go?
That's a valid point, and that's also something that we were talking about a couple episodes here on Stats, a couple episodes ago here on Stats Over Politics, is that we all were thinking, okay, the Lakers are going to be without Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. They're cooked. But then there was one Lakers fan who was in our comments saying, give us the Rockets, we'll be fine. And that's exactly what happened. And now we're seeing it pay dividends for the Lakers. And that was a hell of a stat from Javon regarding King James once he gets up 2-0 in a series. And so, Keith, we know you are a noted huge LeBron James fan. And Toddy just covered this series pretty well thus far through 2 games. So I'm going to pivot in another direction for this series, and I want to get your thoughts. I'm going to ask you a crazy question right now, but I'm going to get your thoughts. So we think back to Kevin Durant being traded to the Houston Rockets, and then we see the Phoenix Suns battling the Oklahoma City Thunder in their respective series. The crazy question is, would the Houston Rockets be better off right now? Obviously, KD missed game 1, but would the Houston Rockets be better off right now with Dillon Brooks and Jalen Green rather than having just one Kevin Durant? Because the Lakers are constantly doubling Kevin Durant and they're forcing the ball out of his hands. And I mean, Dillon Brooks is no Kevin Durant. Jalen Green is no Kevin Durant, but they are 2 separate players who could pass the ball back and forth and would limit the amount of double teams all going on to Houston's top scorer. So the question is, would Houston be having more success right now if they still had Jalen Green and Dillon Brooks rather than Kevin Durant?
100%. For years, you know something? For years, I've heard you sports writers and you pundits and you Twitter fingers and you tweeters and non-believers and the ultimate deleters tell me that Kevin Durant was on the same level as the greatest basketball player who ever put on a pair of sneakers, LeBron Ramon James. And I watched Kevin Durant and his team ultimately funnel the news that he was joining the Houston Rockets last summer, while his old team, the Oklahoma City Thunder, who, by the way, he snaked to go join the Golden State Warriors and join Steph Curry and ride the bus for 2 championships, the only 2 he's ever had, by the way, that he wasn't the bus driver. Well, that's another story for another day. I watched Kevin Durant funnel that news. I said to myself, why is this a big deal? Because everywhere this man has gone, besides the stop where he was with arguably the greatest point guard that ever lived, hasn't won anything. What are we talking about here? And now you see why. Is he a great scorer? Yes. The Rockets put all their chips into thinking that Kevin Durant was the solution. You see, they blamed Jalen Green for everything that transpired in last summer's series against Golden State. And I'm gonna kind of level with them. He was partly responsible for why they lost that series, but he wasn't the entire reason. Majority of the team played bad. And you're still seeing now with Kevin Durant on the Rockets, it doesn't matter because he's the only guy that can score. And by the way, this whole thing about Ime Udoka being a great coach, where were the answers, Shaun Hoko, I ask you? Where were the answers when Kevin Durant was double teamed? Where were the answers after a 20-point barrage in the first half? And the Lakers said, you know what? It just dawned on us. He's the only guy that can score on his own and get his own shot. Had 3 points in the second half after they started doubling him. Where was the answers? Nowhere to be found. And so, again, you combine the fact that with those Twitter leaks, the way he was talking about his teammates, the way the body language on this Houston team is awful. They are the most fraudulent 5 seed I've ever seen. And I'm going to give you one more. I'm going to go out on a limb here. Okay? Are you ready for this?
I'm waiting.
Rockets, Hot Pockets, the legend Darnell Dockett, Shangoon, Shangoon, Crab Ragoon, SpongeBob's Blue Lagoon. Lakers going to sweep them.
Oh, my God.
They're going to get swept. Houston's not winning a game in this series. They just threw Kevin Durant out there. What was it, like 2 or 3 days after a deep patellar tendon bruise? And he gave you a 20-plus game? It didn't matter. Why does it not matter? Because the greatest basketball player that has ever walked the face of God's green earth at 41 years old is the best player on the floor. If you gave me today, to go back to your original question, if you gave me today a choice, I can have the Phoenix Suns going forward for the next 5 years, or I could have the Houston Rockets. I pick the Phoenix Suns every day of the week. They're young. They've got pieces that can still play and mold. They've got options. What do the Houston Rockets have besides Thompson, who, by the way, we're starting to figure out can't score on his own, and Shangoon, who, I hate to say it, he's becoming Sabonis in the playoffs. He can't score either. I'd pick the Suns. Thus is the Kevin Durant curse.
But let me just interject and push back for a moment, and we gotta move on to the next series because we got a lot to cover. But I do want to follow up on this. So I agree with you that over the next 5 years, I would rather have the Suns than the Rockets.
That's good.
But where I push back a little bit, as it pertains to this season specifically, is the Rockets have been ravaged by injuries. Like, it's not just KD being out game 1. They have been ravaged by injuries. Fred VanVleet has been out the entire season. Steven Adams has missed. He has been out since like halfway through the season. Dorian Finney-Smith, another big addition during the offseason. The Rockets were signing guys left and right because everyone wanted to go to Houston and play with KD in that young core of Sengun and Thompson. But yet the Rockets have been ravaged by injuries. So I agree with you. Over the next 5 years, I would rather have the Suns. But when it comes to this season, if the Rockets are healthy, I would rather have that Rockets core this season than the Suns. Over the next 5, yeah, I'm taking the youth movement with the Suns. But I just had to push back on that a little bit because the Rockets have been ravaged by injuries. And like that context is important.
And they got arrogant. They got really arrogant thinking that when VanVleet left, they didn't need a true point guard. And I'm going to tell you something right now. Reed Shepherd ain't it, Chief. It's starting to become pretty apparent that Reed Shepherd ain't it, and that is a busted pick. He's damn near unplayable in this series. In a series where they have no choice but to throw him out there because they need as many guys that can handle the basketball as possible. And also, again, what would the Lakers be doing right now with a healthy Luka Doncic? What would the Lakers do to the Rockets right now? Throw Luka out of the way. Throw him out of the equation. What would they do if they had Reeves off the ball? Lakers in 4.
It would be nasty. Real quickly, Javon, we got to keep it moving to the next series for the sake of time. But because Keith took a shot at Ime Udoka and he's your former Celtics head coach, just how you feeling about Ime Udoka right now, Javon?
I'm just saying it all comes down to the addition of Kevin Durant. Obviously, Ime Udoka, his stint in Boston was cut short, obviously, for off-the-court reasons. Quickly got the Houston Rockets job. And the first year was pretty good. They got the number 2 seed. A lot of promise. You were thinking with the addition of Kevin Durant, it should skyrocket, obviously. I do think they can't get swept. I will say that. If the Rockets get swept, Ime Udoka's job is going to be in question. I think 100%. I do believe. I don't think if they're losing, like, it's going to be tough because I don't know if Austin Reeves is going to come back this series, but the longer it gets extended, the more likely of a chance he does. I don't think Luka's coming back this series at all. But if they do end up getting Austin Reeves, based off of how this series can get extended, but if the Lakers go on the road in Game 3 and win, and they go down 0-3, the series is obviously good is over. So I do think with the addition of an Austin Reeves, that's going to heighten the chance of them being able to get the series wrapped up. But I do think the Rockets are in deep water. Ime Udoka has to. He was known for being one of the best coaches in the league, and I think he's kind of getting away from that. The Reed Shepherd. It's kind of, you're fucked either way because he's not supposed to be the starting point guard. Fred VanVleet is, and he's obviously hurt. So they're kind of forced to throw Reed Shepherd out there. And I think when it comes down to it, who else are you going to put out there? So the Rockets are definitely in deep trouble for sure.
Yes, they certainly are. As we move on now to this next series, which is the Trailblazers beating the Spurs 106-103 last night to tie the series 1-1, Keith. And again, context matters because Victor Wembanyama, the newly crowned Defensive Player of the Year, he took a hard fall, hit his head, and he ended up getting diagnosed with a concussion. He's in the protocol now. You don't hear that very often in most sports other than football, but yet this is the case now. They got to take it seriously. It comes down to his brain health. But because of that, the Spurs, they let the Trailblazers back in this game. I believe that the Trailblazers outscored them like 27-10, something like that, to end the game after they trailed. I think the score was 90-79. And then the Trailblazers went on to outscore them like they did. But the point being, Portland steals a game in San Antonio. Now they have home court. And who knows when Victor Wembanyama is going to be back. So, Javon, I'm going to toss this one to you first. Just what was your reaction to the Blazers stealing Game 2 and the fact that Wemby could be out for a bit?
I think the Blazers are going to go up 2-1 in the series. I don't think Victor Wembanyama is going to play in Game 3. I'm just looking at the turnaround time. I'm doing football logic. There are players who get hurt in a week span aren't ready to play in next week's game. This is like a 2-3 day turnaround. There's no way in hell he should be cleared to play in Game 3. So that's why I'm looking at it from a standpoint of how is he going to clear concussion protocol is kind of what I'm looking at it as. Now, if the Spurs, albeit, are able to get to win Game 3, there are going to be serious considerations of, are we going to just rest Victor Wembanyama for the entirety of the series? If they're able to win these games on the road without him, and he's still kind of up in the air on what his health is looking like, there's a strong possibility that the Spurs would sit him and just rest him for the remainder of the series. Now, as far as this goes, Scoot Henderson, breakout game, 31 points. He was a guy for this Portland team. You didn't really know what he would look like. He was very off and on in his second year, kind of having a sophomore slump. And you're wondering, hey, this is the number 2 overall pick. You got this guy, Victor Wembanyama, who's just leaps and bounds ahead of this guy. And I think with the addition of Denny Advia, I don't know how he's not going to win Most Improved Player. Like, how are we? He had a 40 ball in the playing game. He's been hooping kind of all year. He's an all-star. You can argue he's an all-NBA guy. I just think future-wise, this is one of the teams that you're looking at. You got Denny, you got Scoot, Shaden Sharp, who probably should have been a Sacramento King. You're looking at that young core like, damn. And then we got Damian Lillard coming back. Healthy Damian Lillard. Like, how good can this Portland Trailblazers team? Mind you, their coach was in investigation for gambling since game one. And Tiago Splitter, literally from the top rope, Tiago Splitter. I know Shaun was just at WrestleMania this past weekend. Tiago Splitter from the Raptors comes in and gets this team to a number 7 seed is just insanity. The Spurs need De'Aaron Fox to step up. This is a guy who got an extension from the San Antonio Spurs after obviously departing from Sacramento, wanting to be in the big moment. We've seen what he's capable of as a number 1 option in the playoffs. I mean, for God's sake, his first playoff game, I believe he had like 40 points. So I think we were all capable, knowing what he was capable of. And I think he always wanted to prove that he was ready for the big moment. I think this is his moment to kind of show out and prove to this organization that this extension was not a mistake. His addition for this team was not a mistake. He is supposed to be the Robin to Victor Wembanyama's Batman. And I think sometimes Robin had to put on that cape and go out and show that he can fill in for Bruce Wayne. And I do think De'Aaron Fox, albeit he's an all-star, maybe an all-NBA guy, can go out and prove that for you. So I think this game 3 is going to be huge, albeit it is going to be on the road. Keldon Johnson's got to step up for them. Obviously, he just won 6th Man of the Year. Guys like Stephon Castle, Champagnie, you're going to need more from those guys. And this is me just assuming that Victor Wembanyama is not going to play. I don't think he's going to play. I don't think that he's going to be available. And I do think this Rip City type of mentality that they're going to have a lot of juice going into Portland. I think Portland wins this game. I think it's going to be close. I think we're going to see a lot from Denny Avdia again, getting downhill. That's kind of been his strong suit pretty much all year. I don't know if we'll see another Scoot Henderson game like that. I do think he just caught fire. And when given the opportunity, he's going to be able to make plays just off of his sheer athleticism. I do think we need to see a little bit more from guys like Jeremy Grant, from guys like Shaden Sharp. I think just Denny is going to have like an insane game. I just think there's going to be so much energy. I think the last time they were in the playoffs, Damian Lillard had that thing packed out. It's going to be an insane environment. And I think De'Aaron Fox comes out and he plays pretty well. But I just think Portland has a lot of momentum right now. And I'm going to pick them to win game 3. And I do think Wembanyama probably comes back game 4. That's kind of like what my estimation is. But I don't think Wemby's playing game 4. I just think the turnaround's too quick for him to just physically be able to pass concussion protocol.
De'Aaron Fox, the spotlight is on him. Spurs fans have not been the biggest fan of Fox since he got traded to San Antonio, which is just absolutely crazy to me, considering what they traded to get him.
Bring it back.
And
I agree.
They are so ungrateful to have De'Aaron Fox, and I get it. He's not consistent with the big performances. I understand, and they don't really just give him the keys in the fourth quarter like the Kings used to just go nuts because they have Victor Wembanyama, and it's understandable. But it's like the way that Spurs fans are so hot and cold on De'Aaron Fox, I just don't like it. They don't appreciate him. They're not grateful for him. They never have been from the jump, and it's probably because they didn't have to give up a Stephon Castle or even a Devin Vassell to get him, as Kevin would scream from the heavens how the Kings got such a terrible package for De'Aaron Fox. And the fact that the Spurs fans are so ungrateful just makes me upset. I hope that he balls out in the rest of this series and the rest of these playoffs just to shut them up, not so the Spurs win, because the Spurs have won enough, but I want him to shut up all those ignorant fans in San Antonio, in Texas, and beyond, because the disrespect is just absolutely crazy. Keith, I agree with you. Bring Fox back to Sacramento. I don't think he wants to come back because this team is in turmoil per usual. Nevertheless, I agree with you that it'd be nice to see him back in a Kings uniform. What was your reaction to the Trailblazers stealing game 2 in this series overall, Keith?
If I'm a San Antonio Spurs fan, I'm very nervous right now. The whole concept of this take that people have had for like the last 5 months that San Antonio can get out of the West, that San Antonio has these young guns and this young core that has nearly at every turn gotten the better of OKC throughout this year. It all circumvents, it all circulates back to the concept that they believe they have the best young player, the guy that is next up, the heir apparent, the 7'4" Messiah, so to speak, in Victor Wembanyama. And the one knock that I've had on Victor, because I've said from the jump, I said he is the guy. If you gave me a choice of Victor or a field of guys under 25, I take Victor every day of the week. But the one knock that I have had is barring injuries. And the strange and the frustrating part about some of the injuries that you've seen Victor deal with, especially this year, the bruised ribs. And then he gets the chair pulled out from underneath him and he bangs his head, goes head first, like literally a basketball, on the floor and gets a concussion. These aren't just injuries. Like, these aren't just regular injuries that big men get or even basketball players get. These are freak accidents. And it's like Victor is so talented, but also you're looking at it from a bird's eye view where it's like you just hope he doesn't get hurt because a one foul move, it could all go bad. But he's getting these freak injuries. They're not even actual basketball injuries. And it's just sad to see. But if you're just looking at it from a competitive standpoint, everything the Spurs do or want to do revolves around Victor's ability to be on the floor. If I'm a Spurs fan, you go from like the highest of highs, 35 in game 1, 9 minutes into game 2, everything's firing on all cylinders, and he's done. And I just want to go through real quick the concussion protocol just so everyone's under the exact ramifications of what has to happen. He has to have at least 48 hours of inactivity and recovery, and then hit several benchmarks without symptoms before he can play. And that's not even including the neurological testing. And he's also got to receive final clearance from the team doctors. This is before he even gets back on the court. So I agree with Toddy. I don't see him playing game 3. And I don't see him playing game 4. And if I'm a Spurs fan, I'm a nervous wreck because I'm going into the eye of the storm. Portland, Oregon, one of the best kept secrets of the United States of America, the Pacific Northwest. That is a basketball town. They love their Blazers, and they see the writing on the wall. Because if Portland takes game 3, if they beat the Spurs in game 3, now you're looking at a game 4 where not only are you down 2-1 if you're San Antonio, there's a possibility you're down 3-1 before you even make it back to San Antonio for game 5. Then you're forced to see if Victor can play. So it's very important that San Antonio takes at least one of these games. I like my chances if I'm San Antonio 2-2 because now it's a numbers game and they got to win at least one in my backyard to get to the next round. But these are dangerous times for the Spurs because this is not just an injury where he wakes up tomorrow and he's fine. Like, concussions are real. So if I'm a Spurs fan, like, you go from the highest of highs to like, oh my God, I'm staring down the barrel of the gun of a 3-1 deficit. And I haven't even gotten the second round. Forget OKC. I might be gone by Mother's Day. And it's very nerve-wracking. And I think, you touch on De'Aaron Fox. I love Fox. We've touched on a couple of guys. I'm going to give you one name. Give you one name that no one's mentioned. Stephon Castle. This is your time. I've looked at Stephon Castle as like a hidden gem. Obviously, Wemby gets all the praise. On any given night, Stephon Castle can fill it up. So maybe, just maybe, we look at somebody like a Stephon Castle that can put them in a position to win a game, because I don't know how they're gonna get past this. This is scary. That's the one guy you can't have missing to get the boat where you need it to go to get the pot of gold. It's scary if I'm a Spurs fan, because he's one of the best players I've ever seen. But man, it's just a freak injury, and it happened at the worst possible time for them. Tough break for the San Antonio faithful out there.
It really is a tough break, and so we shall see how that ends up going, and who knows if Portland can end up pulling off the upset. As now we move on to the next series, and this is what Toddy has been dreading, is that the 76ers beat his beloved Celtics 111-97 to tie the series 1-1 yesterday. And so, Toddy, I'm tossing it to you first. What was your reaction to Philly coming into Boston and leaving with a split?
Celtics didn't shoot well from three. That's usually the reason why we lose a lot of these games, and we win a lot of these games. Missoula ball is kind of, you live by the three, you die by the three. And the Celtics basically died by the three. VJ has come going in and out of the game. Thought would have given us a little bit more of a reliever, but Celtics were pretty much trailing the entirety of the game, and Maxley kind of just got hot at the right time. Celtics were kind of hanging around throughout the entirety of the game. Cut it to 4 at one point in time, and then Maxey just went nuclear, closing out the game. And I think the Celtics kind of ended up just giving up late in the fourth when they could have been pressing. I thought the Celtics were definitely settling a lot more for jumpers rather than just getting to the basket, which they had a lot of opportunities while attacking the basket late in the game. I just think this is just one of those games that the Celtics lose because they get trigger happy from three, and instead of just going to the rack, which is available for guys like Jaylen Brown, guys like Jason Tatum, all NBA guys can pretty much get to the basket at will. I think we settled a lot for jumpers when we were down and kind of pressing a little bit, and it showed, backfired. The Sixers didn't shoot well from three. Didn't really attempt a lot of threes in game one. I thought Nick Nurse made a lot of really good adjustments, being a little bit more aggressive, getting guys like Paul George and Tyrese Maxey involved, and them kind of filling it up from three. Basically showed that I think when you got guys like Tyrese Maxey and VJ Escombe basically combined for 60 points, that duo is showing you why VJ Edgecombe at three was probably the best pick for Philly. And just going back to that draft, a lot of people were assuming that that we would have seen Ace Bailey, like to see Ace Bailey get drafted there. And I don't know, man. Daryl Morley he has a thing for guards, and he figures it out. And I think a lot of people didn't see this pick coming early on when that draft process was going, and then later when the draft started to unfold, it was always the pick was always VJ Edgecombe. And kind of VJ started off the season very, very hot. A lot of people were considering him for Rookie of the Year. I'd say the first 25 games of the year. Died off, dipping into the year a little bit more, and kind of picked back up towards the end of the year, right when playoff season started. He's a guy that even in college, I thought was always ready for the moment, no matter when that might be. And for him to get his opportunity here against the playoffs against the number 2 seeded Celtics, he balled his ass off. I think he's like one of the youngest players in Philly history to score 30 points. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I saw Paul George and him at the podium, and they were talking about his stint, and he balled out for sure.
Yeah, he is a tremendous player, and I didn't really know much about VJ Edgecombe going into the draft, to be honest. And he quickly, like within his first 2 to 3 games, put everyone like me on notice that he is the real deal. He is here to ball out, and he's showing up in these playoffs. So credit to him. And Keith, Joel Embiid has not started basketball activity, and he's unlikely to play in the first round against the Celtics, according to Jorge Sedano of ESPN. And so, can the Sixers complete the upset in the entire series without Embiid, or are they basically cooked and it was nice for them to get one game and not have a complete sweep?
That's not the question you should be asking, in my opinion, respectfully.
Okay.
And the reason I'm looking at it is that you're not seeing the elephant in the room. You're not seeing it. I gotta point it out. It's not about can the Sixers beat the Celtics without Joel Embiid. The Sixers have already won. They've already won. What do I mean by that? Okay, let's break it down. Joel Embiid, it's obvious to anybody who is a basketball fan, has been on the back end for years now. He's been injury prone. He just can't beat it. It is what it is at this point. Great talent, could never stay healthy. And that's okay. That's sports. Some guys just get hurt and some guys can't stay healthy. See Derrick Rose. But the Sixers, they have already won because the future is right in front of them. VJ Edgecombe is the first NBA rookie since Tim Duncan to put up a 30-point, 10 or more rebound game in the postseason. The Sixers have found the future. They are going to build this team around Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe. It was never about this year. Are the Sixers a contender? Anybody with any ounce of knowledge could tell you the Sixers were not contending. But it's the fact that they found this young star, this budding star to go with Tyrese Maxey, who, I guess for lack of a better term, in my opinion, slept on. Very underrated. One of the best pure scorers at the guard position. Now, they're teaming him up with another guy who can just fill it up. And he plays with such a high motor. And
he's available too, by the way.
And Toddy hit the nail on the head. He's had the ups and downs, but he's played a majority of this season. And isn't the best ability Shaun Hoko and Toddy availability, which is something the Sixers have struggled with for years when they wanted to compete with Joel Embiid, because Joel Embiid was not available and he was day-to-day for damn near the last 5 playoff runs. So it's not about if they can beat the Celtics. They're not going to beat the Celtics. The Celtics are not losing to the Sixers in the first round. It's not happening. The Celtics will never shoot like this again in the first half or in the first round. But the Sixers, they're playing with house money. We'll talk about house money a little bit more with the Knicks and the Hawks a little bit more. But the Sixers have already won. They found the future. Now is the time. Take the cap hit. Do what you can do to unload the Embiid contract. You're going to get rid of Paul George. He's shot goods too. Build around the young core. Do it the right way. I'm not saying trust the process because you're already in the process, but you've got 2 young chips in Maxey and Edgecombe that you can build around now. It's now time to part ways with Joel Embiid. Thank you for your services, sir. It's over. Get rid of him.
Wow.
I don't know if Philly's ready to do that, but I would do that in a heartbeat. See if you can get off with Joel. People were
time to go.
Snooping around. People were already snooping around Joel Embiid last season after his injuries obviously just continue to pile up. But people are willing to take a flyer on Joel Embiid. If you're like one of those teams that are kind of like trying to feel like you're like a star away and you could get Joel Embiid, it's the what if. It's the what if we can do this, and it's just somebody's gonna bite the cheese on that and fall in that mousetrap and be like, well, if we are able to get him on a minutes restriction, this, then the 30, he'll be able to play. And I feel like him and Zion are very similar when it comes to their availability being just not being able to play in games. Albeit Zion, I think, played the most game he played his entire career this past season. With Joel, his talent when he's healthy, he's one of the top 5 players in the league. I mean, he won an MVP for Christ's sake. People were comparing him when there was a point in time people were saying that Embiid was better than Jokic, and we all know what Jokic is now. But
I remember those combos.
But Joel has just been so unavailable. It's like, what am I getting? You kind of already know he's not going to play, and especially when playoff time comes around, it's kind of just like, all right, yeah, but if Joel's not playing, then what is the Sixers team really? I do think with the addition of obviously having BJ Edgecombe being what he is now, we saw that early on. You caught lightning in a bottle with getting that top 3 pick. You get a fresh start after the process. So it's like, all right, let's tear it down. Let's see what we got with these young guns, and just figure out how we can build around them and put pieces around them and make this team better. Because I just think at this point, Joel is just kind of hindering this team from being as good as they can be. And we understand. We all understand when Joel Embiid is healthy, he's one of the best players in the league. But we haven't seen that in the past 3 seasons? 4? It's been he's consistently been hurt in the playoffs for a while now.
Also, Shaun, don't they play with such better tempo now? Without having to wait for him to log up and down the court, without him standing outside at the 3-point line. It's time to cut ties. And by the way, I thank God every day that I have come out on the other side of the fence clean in the Jokic Embiid debates. I never wavered. Never wavered. NBA Twitter, they tried to bully me. They tell me I didn't know what I was talking about, but I never wavered. Never.
Well, Keith, when you first said that it's time for them to cut ties and then Javon doubled down on that, like at first I'm thinking like, how could you trade a player of Joel Embiid's caliber, regardless of if he is in and out with injuries? But then I thought to myself, you know what? If they can get good compensation for him, I don't know if they're going to get Rudy Gobert or Mikal Bridges compensation, which is crazy for me to mention those 2 players' names. Great players, but they're not top 10 players in the NBA. If they're able to get compensation like the Knicks and the Jazz got, or excuse me, the Nets and the Jazz got from the Knicks and the Timberwolves for those respective players, then it's like, yeah, by all means, trade Joel Embiid, sell while his stock is as high as it probably will be at this point in his career, and move on. You build around that young core of those 2 dynamic players that you guys were talking about. But if the Sixers are getting lowballed and they're getting an offer like the Kings got for De'Aaron Fox, then you hold on to him, in my opinion.
They're going to get lowballed because he doesn't play.
They should have traded him 2 years ago, if you want to be real. They should have traded him 2 years ago. They missed
but like shoulda, coulda, woulda. What are they going to do now?
They're stuck with him. And didn't they just extend him? Am I not mistaken?
Yeah.
He's on an extension.
That was the problem. Yeah. Why would you extend him?
Yeah. They're in a
You'll live and learn.
They're tough.
Yep.
It's tough because I feel like they were kind of stuck with them. It's kind of similar to the Giannis situation. I just think the Sixers actually extended him. The Bucks are in a position where Giannis is looking for an extension, and it's coming down to like, all right, it's kind of run its course. Doc leaves, retires. It's tough because Joel Embiid won MVP, so it's like you're hanging on. It's like they're hanging on to something that happened so long ago. It's like everyone with 2016. Like, oh man, 2016 was the year of it was just the greatest time ever. Like, oh my God. Like, all right, guys, 2016, we get it. I posted something on Instagram the other day. In-N-Out burger was like $3 for a double-double. Like, I just
good times.
You crave for those things back, but it's like, all right, guys, that was how long ago? So I think with this whole Joel Embiid situation, it's like you're holding. It's like that guy in high school who's holding on, who keeps coming back. Is like, man, I was the man in high school.
It's that Gucci bag meme where the guy's got like it hanging on by a thread. Let it go, bro. Let it go.
So, yeah, I mean, holding on to those prime years.
I think with Joel, what type of player is Joel Embiid in his current state now? It's very hard because I do think he has that ability to average 20 and 10, but it's like I'm getting 20 games of that. Is it worth it at that point? So it's like it's so tough because we know when healthy he's one of the best players in the league, but it's like he just never plays. And so
never in prime shape either, by the way.
You never, when he doesn't play, he's out of shape. He's got to play himself back into shape. By the time he plays himself back into shape, something ruptures, something's hurt. And so you're just repeating the same cycle over and over and over again. It's just like, let's give you an extension. So it's like, you kind of screwed yourself there. So at the same time, it's just kind of like, all right, man, you gotta let it go. So like I said, Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, those are what you want to build around. Those guys are the future. So it's like, you're not walking away with nothing. It's not like when you trade Joel Embiid, your team is done for. You have those two budding stars. So the Sixers have to figure out a way. First, they got to find a sucker who's willing to take on the Joel Embiid contract and deal with all the repercussions of him being unavailable, not really playing. Already said he's not playing back-to-backs. He's probably at the point he's probably playing like 40 to 50 games a year. And so that's just what he is now.
Yeah, two things I want to add to that, Javon, regarding how many games he plays. As I remember at the end of the regular season, there was a stat that was like he has literally missed just as many games as he's played in. And so now he has missed more games than he's played in because he's continued to miss time. But the other thing I'll add, and I'll just add this as a kicker to this series, and then we'll move on to the next. I got a sucker for you, Javon. That sucker is named the Golden State Warriors. They are desperate, and they will do whatever it takes to try and maximize the last couple years of Steph Curry. They did that with Jimmy Butler. They will do it again for Joel Embiid if the price is right. That's the team. That's the team I'm calling right now. Yes, and we could talk about that further, but we'll save it for another episode so we can get to these last three series as quickly as possible. The Timberwolves beat the Nuggets 119-114 to tie the series at 1. So, Keith, I'm going to toss this one to you first. Just what was your reaction to Minnesota going to Denver and leaving with the split?
Obviously, this series is one that Denver has looked forward to for a while. Denver feels like Minnesota cost them a shot at the championship a couple years back. They felt like that team, that window, they were equipped to handle OKC. Now, they found out last year they weren't. But there is something about Minnesota, 6 seed, 3 seed, 2 seed, 20 seed. They're the epitome. Just get in the dance, because we have a guy when the lights are the brightest and everything's on the line, we can hitch our wagons to an Anthony Edwards. No fear, 100% confidence, playing from the seat of his pants, not afraid at all. Now, I was nervous because obviously the runner's knee, how much can he play? Game one, he did not look right. And I said to myself, they're in trouble. Because Denver is hungry, they're prime, they feel like they're playing their best basketball. Jokic, I mean, the only reason Jokic is not MVP this year is because of the fatigue, from the voters. But game two, and it's kind of similar with the Knicks and Hawks, and hopefully we talk about that a little more in detail. Denver took their foot off the gas pedal, and it bit them in the ass because they forgot they are playing a guy who arguably is coming for the crown. And then, to add insult to injury, this is how crazy these people in Minnesota are. No fear on anybody in this team. You think Edwards is insane? What about Jaden McDaniels? What was the game plan? we were just going to target all the bad defenders on the team. Tim Hardaway, Jokic, the popcorn guy, the cotton candy guy. Yeah, pretty much the whole team sucks at defending. This is game 2. This is not game 4. This is not game 5. And hey, listen, the truth is meant to hurt, arguably. They used to tell me if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. But, I mean, that's ballsy. Because we're 1-1. It's not like Minnesota has handled Denver the first 2 games of the series. It's been pretty even. It could go either way right now. But to do that, I mean, if I'm Denver, I got to come out in game 3 and I got to win that game. Because you just call out our entire team. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Nuggets respond. And also it's going to be interesting to see, because if Minnesota does not come in and play good basketball at home and they lose this series, the ramifications will be deep and the ramifications will be swift. But at the end of the day, I love Jokic. Are we sure Minnesota doesn't have the best player in this series right now? Are we sure? I don't know. But this is probably the most entertaining series in my mind next to the Knicks and Hawks that we have right now. I see this going 7. This is going 7.
I sure hope so, because this is a tremendous matchup. And to me, this is the Tim Conley series, a guy who was an executive for the Denver Nuggets, and now he's the president of basketball operations and GM for the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I think he is factoring into this series more than people truly realize, just when it comes to what he learned during his time in Denver. There's still some core pieces, Nikola Jokic being the main one, but also a Jamal Murray, who are still there in the Mile High City. So I think that that's an interesting tidbit. But Toddy, just if you can pick this up wherever you want. I mean, Keith was alluding to
One more thing real quick. One more thing real quick. Minnesota will have a problem if game 1 Jamal Murray shows up for the whole series, because they got nobody to guard him. You talk about bad defenders all you want, but you got nobody to guard Jamal Murray when he's on a heater like he was in game 1.
Man, Jamal Murray, to me, is one of the most frustrating players in the NBA, at least in my opinion, because we were talking earlier about De'Aaron Fox's inconsistency. Jamal Murray is one of the most hot and cold players in the league, in my opinion. And yeah, it's great when he's on one. Like, we remember those infamous matchups between him and Donovan Mitchell going back and forth in the bubble. Like, that was amazing. But it's just not consistent enough from Jamal Murray. Like, obviously, the year that they won the championship, he did enough alongside Nikola Jokic being the Robin to his Batman. But I'm leaning towards Minnesota in this series, simply because I know what I'm going to get from Minnesota night in and night out most of the time. Jamal Murray is truly hit or miss. And so, just Toddy, how do you feel about this series when it comes to who the best player in the series is, or which team has the advantage?
As Shaun mentioned, the executive for the Minnesota Timberwolves literally was inside of the building when they won the championship. So I think this Minnesota team was constructed to beat this Denver team. And we always go back to the Rudy Gobert trade. Rudy Gobert has been playing phenomenal on Nikola Jokic. That is one thing that kind of gets swept under the rug. I get, for the money and the compensation that they had to give up to get Rudy Gobert and what he was paid, is not really what most teams would ask for, because they would ask him to be some sort of a threat on the offensive end. But here, it's very unique because of the matchup that is presented to him. You are asked to guard a top 2 player in the league at your position, just period, overall. And the job that he has done on Nikola Jokic in game 1 and game 2 has been phenomenal. And we have guys like Anthony Edwards, who he probably believes that he is the best player in this series, hell, the best player in the world, whenever he steps foot on the court. It doesn't matter who he's playing against. And I think when it comes to Anthony Edwards, he's still coming off of an injury, so he hasn't really gotten it. He said in his post-game interview that, hey man, it's been like 2 months and I've only played like 2 games. So I'm really just getting my wind under me. And Had 30 points, albeit it was off 25 shots. But I think once Anthony Edwards gets rolling, it's going to be very, very scary. I do think at the end of the game, I'd say it was like 7 minutes left. The Nuggets were up like 4 or 5 points, and you kind of saw on a bunch of possessions, the Nuggets were kind of bending over, grabbing their knees, kind of hunched over. Just they looked very fatigued, and I thought when the Timberwolves were able to initiate the early offense, the Nuggets weren't really able to get back on defense, and it was leading to easy buckets, easy transition buckets for this Timberwolves team. We heard Jada, as Keith already mentioned, Jada McDaniel was talking about we were targeting Jokic, Murray, guys like that on the defensive, on the offensive side of the ball because they were not good. I don't really see any lies. He told. I don't think we think Jokic is a good defender. Jamal Murray is not known for his defense at all. I think the guys like Aaron Gordon, Christian Brown are different when it comes to those guys. It's a different story, but I think he had the right idea attacking those guys on the offensive end of the ball. I think the Timberwolves have all the momentum going, obviously, into Minnesota. It's not like they haven't done this before. They've proven to the world that they're able to beat this Nuggets team during the playoffs, and albeit they did it to them when they were coming off of a championship run. So I do think it's going to be interesting how Denver adjusts to the defensive game plan. It was for them when Jokic is being guarded by Rudy Gobert, because Jokic hasn't really played well in the series. I don't think he's been able to affect the game, but I don't think he hasn't been able to affect the game that we're kind of accustomed to seeing. We've seen Jokic in playoff performance, 40-point triple doubles, like 30-point triple doubles. We're accustomed to seeing that, but when Rudy Gobert has been guarding him throughout the series, he hasn't really been scoring at his top tier that we're accustomed to seeing. And I do think once Anthony Edwards gets rolling, he's going to be a force of nature that no one's going to be able to stop. So they're going to need more from Jamal Murray, and they're going to need more from obviously Nikola Jokic. One thing I will say, early on down the stretch of that game, DiVincenzo hit a really big timely three that put them up, and then Aaron Gordon ended up answering. And what ended up happening is they were just trying to get the ball out of Anthony Edwards' hands throughout the end of the game because they didn't want to get killed by him. And they were kind of the man that was doubling Anthony Edwards was DiVincenzo's was leaving DiVincenzo wide open. He was able to score off of that. And I think that was kind of a defensive blurb that kind of snowballed into the Nuggets weren't getting back on defense. They were giving up easy transition buckets, and they kind of just let the game slip away from them. So, hell of a game too. It was. I thought the Timberwolves were kind of going back and forth with the Nuggets in game one. Had chances to win, but ran out of gas offensively. And I do think going back to Minnesota, tying, they have all the confidence in the world because they have proof of concept because they've done it before. And I do think all those fans in Minnesota are just going to be like, hey, man, we just did this a couple of years ago. This ain't nothing new. We've been here before. Why can't we beat this team again? So I like Denver. Not Denver. I like Minnesota to win this series. I think if they do win the series, they got to do it in 6 games. They don't want to go back to Denver for game 7. I'll just say that.
Well, speaking of another team that in recent years has been there and done that, but this time it's a completely different iteration, and that is the Hawks in New York against the Knicks as Atlanta beat the Knicks 107-106 to tie the series 1-1 in game 2. And it's completely different from when we first started this podcast, or even back to the Shaun and Vaughn days when Toddy's boy, Trae Young, who constantly makes everyone shiver, he was the villain and he was torching everyone and everything in Madison Square Garden, and he embraced the villain role. And now Trae Young is gone, and a player that was acquired in the trade that sent him to DC, none other than Mr. CJ McCollum, has basically been cast as the villain for his role that he played in game 2, where he was constantly cooking Jalen Brunson, and they were targeting Jalen Brunson. They were putting him on an island. And I don't like seeing this happen to Jalen Brunson. He's a close personal friend of mine. For the audio-only listeners, I'm totally joking. I just had to have an excuse to put a selfie of Jalen Brunson and I on the screen from 2021 during COVID when I saw him walking around with his lady in Doko. And that was before Jalen Brunson really blew up into the player that he is today. Nevertheless, Atlanta ties the series 1-1. Toddy, I'm tossing this one right back to you because you've kind of been a Hawks fan and truther throughout the years due to your love for Trae Young. I remember you mimicking Shaq with the but now the new look Hawks have tied the series with New York. What was your reaction to the game 2 win, and also how you feel about the rest of this series?
I thought I picked the Hawks to win the series. I don't think anybody had CJ McCollum going for 32 on their bingo card. Didn't really see too much from Jalen Johnson, who I think a lot of people believe that is the Hawks' best player. You thought you would see a little bit more from Nickeil Alexander-Walker based off of his regular season performance. Jonathan Kuminga, I thought, is going to. I think he's the X factor in this whole entire series. Just him being able to give that bench scoring that Hawks team's ever so desperately needed. Is going to be key for them. As far as the Knicks go, you already know Jalen Brunson is going to get his shots up. He's going to probably, I predicted he probably was going to average about 30 points this entire series. I mean, it's nothing new for him. We're accustomed to seeing Brunson score at a high rate in the playoffs when it's his time to shine. I thought the Hawks had the right game plan. Just try and go at Cat early, get him in foul trouble, kind of disrupt their game plan. I just think the Knicks kind of let it slip away a little bit. Obviously, the Hawks came back from 26 at one point. Knicks got a little bit stagnant offensively. Let the Hawks kind of climb back in it slowly. And I just think CJ McCollum just he saw a lane and he saw red, and the rest was history. I thought he had a very, very clutch three. Or was it was step back corner? Yeah, I think it was corner three that he had late in the game that kind of ended up uplifting them to a victory. Obviously, I thought it was a very close. I think this game did hit the under. It for sure hit the under in this game. This is going to be a very tight series just based off of the way that the Hawks play. They want to run and gun. They want to get up and down. The Knicks are the complete opposite, wanting to slow the pace down. Brunson is able to get in the half court setting and score off of the pick and roll. And I think those two styles of play are going to collide, and one's going to have to give. I think the Hawks just have a little bit more offensively, and I know it's weird to say it with OG Anunoby, with Mikal Bridges, with Karl Anthony Towns, and obviously Jalen Brunson. I just think as far as the season has went for the New York Knicks, their offense gets a little bit stagnant now. I don't know if that's just the style of play that Mike Brown brings to what their skill set is. That could play a role. And I just think this Knicks team has to figure out a way to not let Jalen Brunson get into his own way, because I just think the way that he plays, it could disrupt how the Knicks offense can flow, because he's going to I think when Jalen Brunson gets on, he's going to be a ball stopper, and everyone's kind of just watching him work. He's going to score, so that minimizes their movement offensively. So that might affect the flow of the offense that Mike Brown wants to run versus what Jalen Brunson, style of play is. And I think that's going to come to a stalemate, and they're going to have to figure out a way to get that squared away because the Knicks are going to need a little bit more. Now, I understand Jalen Brunson is probably averaging 30 points as we speak in the series. They're just going to need a little bit more from Karl Anthony Towns, a little bit more. OG Anunoby, God's sake, Mikal Bridges, where are you?
Yeah, so Keith, earlier we were talking about De'Aaron Fox needing to show up. Obviously, for Mike Brown, and we're sticking with the Sacramento connection here, but Mike Brown isn't out there on the court, but he is the one calling the plays and leading the charge in the huddle. And so a lot of the blame's getting placed on Mike Brown here. Keith, do you believe that that blame is well deserved, or are you pointing the finger elsewhere? And just how are you feeling about this series overall?
It's one of those series, in my opinion, where one team has all the pressure to win for obvious reasons, and the other team is playing with house money. The Knicks can tell you anything they want and say it's just another game. The Knicks have aspirations of getting to the NBA Finals. That is what they see. That is what the fans want to see. That's what that city wants to see. The Knicks have so much pressure to get to the finals after last year. The Hawks are just happy to be here. Hawks did not see on the bingo card a 6 seed when they traded Trae Young. They didn't see any of that. They're just happy to be here. And what you're seeing develop in this series is that the Knicks have succumbed to the pressure. The Knicks buckled under that pressure in game 2. And one of the reasons they have pressure is because they were criticized in the offseason for letting Tibbs walk out the door and replacing him with Mike Brown. And I love Mike Brown. Light the beam. Love it. Loved everything he did for Sacramento. But Mike Brown has a proven track record of botching and blowing up in late game situations and not hitting the right buttons. That's half the reason he's out of Sacramento, right? So again, what you saw in game 2 was the fact that, okay, you can make the argument. Knicks might have the best player in the series in Jalen Brunson. I get to that in a minute. But you can't tell me they have the best coach. Quinn Snyder is the best coach in this series by leaps and bounds, especially in the late game. And what did Quinn Snyder do? He said, I have the ultimate recipe to get this thing home. When it got to 6, I said, now we've got a problem. Because what happened last year to the Knicks? Choked in late game situations against Indiana in those first 2 games in the Garden. What happened in game 2 is the same thing that's been happening all year to the Knicks. Up big, take their foot off the gas pedal, and then what do, Shaun? What do, Toddy? They do what they did last year. They go to what works. They go to Jalen Brunson to bail them out, save us, Jalen, with your late game heroics. And again, sometimes it works. Majority of the time last year it worked. But you saw Atlanta had the right recipe. When he gets past half court, we're doubling him at the top of the three-point line. We're going to force him with that height disadvantage to make a pass. And when he does, like they did in that final sequence that sealed it, Jalen Johnson or whoever, I think it's Alexander Walker, picks the ball off. Jalen Johnson the other way, dunk, 4-point game, game's over. And what I love about this series is that CJ McCollum, you can make an argument, one of the more underrated guards of this decade. And CJ has had his faults in certain situations. But the one thing about CJ McCollum that he's always hung his hat on, Portland especially, New Orleans, you saw it in ebbs and flows because it's the Pelicans and they weren't really relevant. When CJ McCollum gets hot, nothing you can do because he's going to light it up. And you mentioned it, Shaun. They specifically said, Jalen Brunson, you're not going to double. You're going to play this thing one-on-one. All right, we like our chances. And I like what Toddy said. Because Kuminga, I don't think they have anybody that can guard Kuminga one-on-one. The same way the Kings didn't when they played him in Golden State. He can get to the hole anytime he wants. He's athletic. He's great with the second chance opportunities on the rebounds. I got to be honest with you. The Knicks better hope this doesn't get to a game 6 or a game 7 because all the pressure is on the Knicks. The longer this series goes, the more it favors Atlanta. Atlanta, again, playing with house money. They're not expected to win. Everyone's looking at the Knicks and Celtics already. They got that penciled in on the bracket. Okay, what's going to happen? No, because the longer this thing goes, the more that pressure is going to squeeze the Knicks and the fan base. Why aren't we winning already? We should have this thing in the bag. And so Knicks better win game 3. Knicks better win game 3 or at least game 4 and get out of there with a 2-2 slide. Because, again, I hearken back to the whole Spurs thing. If the Knicks come back to the Garden down 3-1 and they win game 5 and got to go to Atlanta to win a must-win game 6, I'm not saying the Hawks are going to win this series. But one game to get to the second round, I'd take my chances if I was an Atlanta Hawks fan. But, again, you got one team clearly playing with all the pressure in the world. Another team just happy to be there. And, hey, they've opened the door. Now we got to see what the Hawks can do. But the door is open, Atlanta. Magic City's going to be on one. Get those wings ready, baby. Because Lemon Pepper Lou's coming. If the Hawks could somehow pull this off, strip clubs are going to be undefeated. It'll be the time of their lives out there in the ATL. God bless them.
Yeah, the one thing that I'll add on to this series, just to put a bow on it, is we talked about CJ McCollum getting hot and how it's hard to stop him when he is in that mindset and he's just locked in on that level. Sacramento Kings fans know that all too well because the Kings told CJ McCollum that they were going to draft him, and then they proceeded not to draft him. So he responded by torching the Sacramento Kings every single time that he plays them, and he consistently drops 30 on the Kings' head. So we in Sacramento know all too well what it's like when CJ McCollum is on one, and now everyone in New York is quickly learning that. As we get to this last series here on episode 188 of Stats Over Politics, Shaun Holko alongside Keith Jouganatos and Javon Toddy. For the sake of time, we're chopping the award segment at the end. We'll talk about all the awards when they all have been released rather than just the top 3. So getting to this last first round series, and Keith and I talked about at the top with the Oklahoma City and Phoenix series that we felt like that was one of the only series that could probably end up in a genuine sweep. If not, it'll be a gentleman's sweep. To me, this is the other series. Yeah, you could say Lakers and Rockets too, which is the third and final series that is currently 2-0. But I think the Rockets will get at least 1, maybe 2 in that series, rather than these matchups with Cleveland and Toronto, and then you also have Oklahoma City and Phoenix. I think it's just going to be a straight up sweep. And the Cavs have shown their dominance early in this series as they beat the Raptors 115-105 to take a 2-0 lead. Keith, I'm tossing this one back to you. Just what was your reaction to Cleveland protecting home court?
I hate to say it.
That was a big sigh.
Because I have to admit it. If you gave me a list of the most impressive teams, obviously this is a short-sighted take. You give me a list of the most impressive teams through 2 games in the NBA playoffs. I'm taking the Cleveland Cavaliers number 1 most likely. I exclude OKC because they are who they are. But I have been very surprised at the way the Cleveland Cavaliers have demolished the Toronto Raptors through 2 games. And maybe we get in later on in this whole Brandon Ingram conundrum that we find ourselves in, because it is a conundrum. And if I'm a Toronto Raptors fan and that's the guy I'm paying millions of dollars and he's the all-star and he's talking about, well, the coach didn't give me the plays. No, you got to take over, man. But, I mean, what can you do when the house is on fire already? Just get the kids and the wife out of there. Donovan Mitchell and Harden. And look, I am not the biggest James Harden fan by any means whatsoever. The track record speaks for itself in the postseason. But let me tell you something. You live by your superstars, you die by the superstars. This is the exact reason why Cleveland went and swung for the fences. We don't trust Darius Garland fully to be the second option. We go out and get James Harden. And I hate to say it, but what's the one thing you can rely on with James Harden? He can score the basketball still. And when he's going and Donovan Mitchell's putting in the output, they are scoring the basketball. It's like getting hit over the head with a hammer, two hammers at the same exact time. There's no way you can defend both of them. And so now you're in a situation where it's like you're picking your poison. Are you going to have more coverage on Mitchell in an isolation situation? Do you back off a Harden, go under the pick and rolls? I don't really know how you defend that, especially when both of them are going strong. And I got to give both of them credit, which is one thing I did not see coming. I did not see maybe the vision that Shaun Hoko saw, where there's one basketball and James Harden has never been the guy to play without the basketball in his hands. But the way they've been able to, I don't know whether it's by, persuading him or he's doing on his own. I got to give James Harden credit for taking the challenge, playing off the basketball the way he has. Because we've never really seen that part of his game. He's always been the guy, has the ball in his hands, takes ample amounts of time off the shot clock, and he either chucks something up, draws a foul. We've never really seen James Harden thrive in a half-court situation where he's not the primary ball handler. And I got to be honest, the way last year ended, especially for Cleveland, where obviously Garland was hurt, and that was a big factor going into it. But the way they were embarrassed by Indiana and the way Donovan Mitchell did not play up to what many consider a superstar. And we started having these conversations about, can you win a championship? Can you get to a finals with Donovan Mitchell as the guy? And those conversations were had for about 1.5 weeks. We just threw him under the rug because Halliburton was just going off, and we had to give him his praise. But it feels like Donovan Mitchell has his Jordan meme, and he took that personal because he has been on a rampage. And listen, we can talk about Boston. I don't know what's going to happen with the Knicks. I would not want to play Cleveland right now. I have to admit, I would not want to play the Cleveland Cavaliers if I'm going to get that kind of scoring output from James Harden and Donovan Mitchell on a consistent basis in a 7-game series. Albeit 2 games, but so far so good for your beloved Cleveland Cavaliers, Shaun Hoko.
I guess this is my beloved Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't know when they necessarily became my beloved Cleveland Cavaliers. I guess just because
when you told Kevin and I that they could get to the finals, that they could get to the conference finals. Yeah, that was like their max. Yeah. You said that was their max that they could max out at, which I thought was crazy, but now maybe not so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I guess I should just ride this wave, take the credit, and keep it moving because my take on the Detroit Pistons doing the same probably doesn't look as great right now. But Toddy, if you could close us out for today's episode with your thoughts on the Cavs putting belt to ass on Toronto.
Yeah, the Cavs won by 10, but I think the score doesn't really give it justice. I think the Raptors are a walking corpse. Brandon Ingram, has anybody seen him? He was last seen at the All-Star game. He was last seen at the podium during the preseason, signing an extension for forget what his extension was, but for him to get traded there from the Pelicans, it was kind of a gamble because he was technically in an expiring deal, and he was essentially a rental. And I thought he played pretty solid in that short window, and I guess that was good enough for Toronto to give him an extension. And for him to give the performance that he gave in Game 2, obviously that's not what Toronto fans are looking for, the organization is looking for. And for him to go out and say, hey, man, to kind of throw his coaching staff under the bus, it doesn't help for him to come out in Game 2 and give the performance that he did. As far as the Cleveland Cavaliers go, I think I saw a stat about James Harden, Evan Mobley, and Donovan Mitchell only playing a combined 90-something minutes together since him being traded. So this is like the first real minutes that we're actually seeing that trio play together. And for them to almost combine for 90 points, it's going to be tough for them to lose games if all of them are playing that high at a high of a level. And I think what Keith already mentioned, the new look James Harden, if that makes sense, because he's once came out and said he is the system. And for him to come to a Cleveland Cavaliers team, I think the system is Donovan Mitchell. I think we can all agree on that. Him being the catalyst for the offense, number one option, and Harden able to kind of play off of Donovan Mitchell's energy. I don't know if Donovan Mitchell has played with anybody with this offensive caliber talent at all. So I think this is new for Donovan Mitchell. It's new for James Harden to play with this type of scoring option that they both possess. And I do believe they can be a very, very scary team because I think they can, when in doubt, they can just score the basketball. And they have guys like Evan Mobley and Jared Allen to protect the rim. As far as the Raptors side, I think Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett are doing what they can. I just think they need their star to step up when it matters most. They obviously have the opportunity tomorrow night on Game 3, but I do think this Raptors team is in a whole heap of trouble, and a threat of being down 0-3 is a real possibility. And I think the Cavs are 3-point dogs in this game, which is alarming. Usually when they're on the road, especially they're already the Raptors are already down 0-2. I think this is going to end up in a sweep. I think the Cavs win 4-0, and I think they're going to have some conversations in the offseason about what this team is going to look like moving forward, and did they make a mistake giving Brandon Ingram an extension?
Well, when it comes to Brandon Ingram and the Toronto Raptors, all I really have to say is 2 words. No, Glow. But that's going to do it for episode 188 of Stats Over Politics with my corny whiteness. We appreciate you all for tuning in. Make sure to give us a like on YouTube. It helps us a lot. If you enjoyed the podcast, hit subscribe to get notifications when we go live. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Stats Over Politics and on X at Stats Over Politics. See all the great content Kevin is putting out there. And make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on all podcast platforms. And if you're enjoying the show, give us those 5 stars. We'd really appreciate it. As you guys have been tuned into episode number 188 of Stats Over Politics. For my guys, Jay Vaughn, Toddy, Kevin Dent, Kaz Johnson, Keith Jouganatos, Alex Dent, and Gary Singh, I've been your host, Shaun Holko. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week on another episode of Stats Over Politics. Peace.